Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Sunday service for August 7th, 2022. A Grim Grizz live stream production brought to you by the Shadow Cabal of production executives. We didn't get a new slogan for this one. But if you're interested, you can join the Shadow Cabal of production executives by clicking on the Patreon link and stuff, and the Substack link and stuff in the description. On Sundays, we sometimes try to be of service to everybody. And on this Sunday, we're going to be of service to everybody by reading some divine love and wisdom by some guy who, like you, was born into a human body, kept waking up every day in the same fleshy sack. And he wrote some things in Latin way back when. Some guy translated them. I'm going to read them for you as a service in a moment. Meanwhile, I'm still picking out pieces for the Thunder Bay thing, so I'm going to let some of that run while I get ready to read the divine love and wisdom. Oh, wait. First, we must do the savings throws against the mind control. So this is like ancient mind control. Some guy wrote it in Latin. Some other guy put it in English, and I'm going to read it to you. So here's your savings throws against all of that to come. You get to choose survival, social, wisdom, or heart. And then the number I roll is your savings throw number. If it's over 10, you made it. Huzzah! All right, survivalists. Those of you who chose survival, 13. You're going to be all right. Socialists, with a 9. You may have gotten a bonus from your activity on the Discord. If so, you might have made it. Sophists, 7. Those of you who chose heart, 3. You got a 3 today. All right, so here's some of this. I'll be right back, and then we'll be reading the divine love and wisdom on today's Sunday service, Grim Grizz live stream.
Messy way, and sometimes in a violent way, but would work itself out. Whereas now what we've got is, in order to access the metaverse and to have access to absolute freedom to do whatever you want, you have to give up every single aspect of yourself to this machine. You have to be completely submitted to it. You have to see, everything about you is going to be owned by this thing, and there's no way out of it. And so it's like, it's 1984 and Brave New World at the same time. Like, who thought that this was possible? But it seems like that's what we're kind of seeing on the horizon, where it's like, it's absolute control, but one that is balanced out weirdly with this.
Okay, this is excellent. This is tremendously helpful, and thank you for speaking on his behalf, because he's not here to speak for himself. So there's now an issue of almost finesse or virtuosity or nuance, because you can't be critical of the self-organizing, having a life of its own aspect of this thing, because that's how it functions, right? So that can't be what
I think the reason why to have that aspect of the conversation is because one of the problems that we're seeing in this type of discussion is that when you point out to the machine, people will say, that's not possible because it requires a conspiracy, a complete centralized conspiracy, and therefore what you're saying is false. And what Paul's trying to say, no, what I'm saying doesn't require that. I can these self-organizing systems exist. This is one of them. It's excessive. It's parasitic. And I can describe it and say that it exists without, and you can't accuse me of saying it can't exist because it would require this insane, like, absolute top-down hierarchy to be communicating all.
I think that argument is very well placed, and thank you for bringing it up. Like the one of the things, and you and I have talked about this, right? One of the damages of conspirituality is its inability to see hyperobjects and see hyperobjects as self-organizing entities that can have a collective intelligence and kind of a collective agency. And that's one of the really worrying kinds of blindness that can do. And so I think that argument is well placed. Let me try. What I'm trying to say is, Like like this is, well, it's running on its own, and you're right. That needs people need, but that's not what's wrong with it.
No.
Right. Right.
What is wrong with it? Who knows? Because today, on Sunday service, we're going to remember Embody. We're going to be reading the divine love and wisdom. Remember Embody. We want what's best for you. No. This one? Sure. Make it bigger. All right. Welcome. We now will begin for you the reading about divine love on this Sunday service live stream, August 7th, 2022. Love is our life. For most people, the existence of love is a given, but the nature of love is a mystery. As for the existence of love, this we know from everyday language. We say that someone loves us, that monarchs love their subjects, and that subjects love their monarch. We say that a husband loves his wife, and that a mother loves her children, and vice versa. We say that people love their country, their fellow citizens, their neighbor. We use the same language about impersonal objects, saying that someone loves this or that thing. Even though the word love is so commonly on our tongues, still hardly anyone knows what love is. When we stop to think about it, we find that we cannot form any image of it in our thoughts. So we say either that this is really that this is not really anything, or that it's simply something that flows into us from our sight, hearing, touch, and conversation, and therefore influences us. We are wholly unaware that it is our very life, not just the general life of our whole body and all of our thoughts, but the life of their every last detail. Wise people can grasp this when you ask, if you take away the effects of love, can you think anything? Can you do anything? As the effects of love lose their warmth, do not thought and speech and action lose theirs as well? Do they not warm up as love warms up? Still, the grasp of these wise people is not based on the thought that love is our life, but on their experience that this is how things happen. We cannot know what our life is unless we know that it is love. If we do not know this, then one person may believe that life is nothing but sensation and action, and another that it is thought, when in fact thought is the first effect of life, and sensation and action are secondary effects of life. Thought is the first effect of life, as just noted, but there are deeper and deeper forms of thought as well as more and more superficial ones. The deepest form of thought, the perception of ends, is actually the first effect of life. But more on this below, in connection with levels of life. We can get some idea that love is our life from the warmth of all the sun in our world. We know this warmth acts like the life shared by all Earth's plants, because when it increases in the spring, plants of all kinds sprout from the soil. They dress themselves in their leafy finery, and then in their blossoms, and eventually in fruit. This is how they live. When the warmth ebbs away, though, as it does in fall and winter, they are stripped of these signs of life, and they wither. Love works the same way in us, because love and warmth correspond to each other. This is why love makes us warm. Welcome to the Sunday service, Virtually Not Alone Experience, Grim Grizz live stream for August 7th, 2022. I'm your host, Grim Grizz. You can buy shirts and stuff. God alone the Lord, is love itself, because he is life itself. Both we on earth and angels are life receivers. I will be offering many illustrations of this in works on divine providence and life. Here I would say only that the Lord, who is God of the universe, is uncreated and infinite, while we and angels are created and finite. Since the Lord is uncreated and infinite, he is that essential reality that is called Jehovah, and is life itself, or life in itself. No one can be created directly from the uncreated, the infinite, from reality itself and life itself, because what is divine is one and undivided. We must be created out of things created and finite, things so formed that something divine can dwell within. Since we and angels are of this nature, we are life receivers. So if we let ourselves be misled in thought so badly that we think we are not life receivers, but are actually life, there is no way to keep us from thinking that we are God. Our sense that we are life and our consequent belief that we are life rests on an illusion. In an instrumental cause, the presence of its principal cause is only felt as something identical to itself. The Lord himself teaches that he is life in itself in John. As the Father has life in himself, so too he has granted the Son to have life in himself. And again in John, he teaches that he is life itself. Since life and love are one and the same, as we can see from the first two sections above, it follows that the Lord, being life itself, is love itself. If this is to be intelligible, though, it is essential to realize that the Lord, being love in its very essence, or divine love, is visible to angels in heaven as a sun, that warmth and light flow from that sun, that the outflowing warmth is essentially love, and the outflowing light essentially wisdom, and that the extent that angels are receptive of that spiritual warmth and spiritual light, they themselves are instances of love and wisdom. Instances of love and wisdom, not on their own, but from the Lord. Spiritual warmth and spiritual light flow into and affect not only angels, but also us, precisely to the extent that we become receptive. Our receptivity develops in proportion to our love for the Lord and our love for our neighbor. That sun itself, or divine love, cannot use its warmth and light to create anyone directly from itself. If it did, the creature would be love in its essence, which is the Lord himself. It can, however, create people out of material substances so formed as to be receptive of its actual warmth and light. In this same way, the sun of our world cannot use its warmth and light to bring forth sprouts in the earth directly. Rather, the sun uses substances in the soil in which it can be present through its warmth and light to make plants grow. On the Lord's divine love being seen as the sun in the spiritual world, with spiritual warmth and light flowing from it, giving angels their love and wisdom, see Heaven and Hell, pages 116 through 142. Since we are life receivers, not life, it follows that our conception from our parents is not the conception of life, but simply the conception of the first and purest forms that can accept life. These forms serve as a nucleus, or beginning in the womb, to which are added step by step material substances in forms suited in their various patterns and level to the reception of life. Divinity is not in space. Given the divine omnipresence, presence with everyone in the world, with every angel in heaven, and with every spirit under heaven, there is no way a merely physical image can compass the thought that divinity or God is not in space. Only a spiritual image will suffice. Physical images are inadequate because they involve space. They are put together out of earthly things, and there is something spatial about absolutely every earthly thing we see with our eyes. Everything that is large or small here involves space. Everything that is long or wide or high here involves space. In a word, every measurement, every shape, every form here involves space. This is why I said that a merely physical image cannot compass the fact that divinity is not in space, when the claim is made that it is everywhere. Still, we can grasp this with our earthly thinking if we only let in a little spiritual light. This requires that I first say something about spiritual concepts and the spiritual thinking that arises from them. Spiritual concepts have nothing to do with space. They have to do solely with state. State being an attribute of love, life, wisdom, desires, and the delights they provide. In general, an attribute of what is good and true. A truly spiritual concept of these realities has nothing in common with space. It is higher and looks down on spatial concepts the way heaven looks down on earth. However, since angels and spirits see with their eyes the way we do on earth, and since objects can be seen only in space, there does seem to be space in the spiritual world where angels and spirits are. Space like ours on earth. Still, it is not space but an appearance of space. It is not fixed and invariant like ours. It can be lengthened and shortened, changed and altered, and since it cannot be defined by measurement, we here cannot grasp it with an earthly concept, but only with a spiritual one. Spiritual concepts are no different when they apply to spatial distances than when they apply to distances of what is good and distances of what is true, which are agreements and likenesses as to state. Hi, everybody. It stands to reason, then, that with merely earthly concepts, we cannot grasp the fact that divinity is everywhere and still not in space, and that angels and spirits understand this quite clearly. This means that we too could understand if we could only let a little spiritual light into our thinking. The reason we can understand is that it is not our bodies that think, but our spirits. So it is not our physical side, but our spiritual side. The reason so many people do not grasp this is that they love what is earthly and are therefore reluctant to lift their thinking above it into spiritual light. People who are reluctant can think only spatially, even about God, and thinking spatially about God is thinking about the extended size of nature. This premise is necessary because without a knowledge and some sense that divinity is not in space, we cannot understand anything about the divine life that is love and wisdom, which are our present topic. This means there can be little, if any, understanding of divine providence, omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, infinity, and eternity, which are to be dealt with in sequence. Well, so that's happening. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Gilbert, Bong Hong, good to see you. Welcome to the Sunday service, August 7th. Grimger's live stream, where I'm reading on love and wisdom by some old guy. It used to be in Latin once. I have stated that in the spiritual world, just as in this physical world, we can see space and therefore distances as well, but that they are appearances dependent on spiritual likeness of love and wisdom, of what is good and true. This is why, even though the Lord is with angels everywhere in heaven, he still appears high overhead, looking like a sun. Further, since it is the acceptance of love and wisdom that causes likeness to him, If angels have a closer resemblance because of their acceptance, their heavens appear to be closer to the Lord than those of angels whose resemblance is more remote. This is also why the heavens, and there are 3 of them, are marked off from each other, as they are the communities of each heaven. It is also why the hells underneath them are farther away in proportion to the rejection of love and wisdom. It is the same for us. The Lord is present in us and with us throughout the whole world, and the reason for this is simply that the Lord is not in space. God is the essential person. Throughout all the heavens, the only concept of God is the concept of a person. The reason that heaven, overall and regionally, is in a kind of human form, and divinity among angels is what makes heaven. What? The reason that heaven, overall and regionally, is in a kind of human form, and divinity among the angels is what makes heaven. Further, thinking proceeds in keeping with heaven's form, so it is not possible for angels to think about God in any other way. This is why all the people on earth who are in touch with heaven think about God in the same way when they are thinking very deeply or in their spirit. It is because God is a person that all angels and spirits are perfectly formed people. It is because God is a person that all angels and spirits are perfectly formed people. This is because of heaven's form, which is the same in its largest and smallest manifestations. On heaven being in a human form overall and regionally, see Heaven and Hell, 59 to 86. And on thought progressing, keeping with heaven's form, 203 and 4 there. It is common knowledge that we are created in the image and likeness of God because of Genesis 1:26-27, and from the fact that Abraham and others saw God as a person. The earthly people, wise and simple alike, thought of God only as a person. Even when they began to worship many gods, as they did in Athens and Rome, they worshipped them as persons. By way of illustration, here's an excerpt from an earlier booklet. Non-Christians, especially Africans, who acknowledge and worship one God as the creator of the universe, conceive of that God as a person. They say that no one can have any other concept of God. When they hear that many people prefer an image of God as a little cloud in the center, they ask where these people are, and when they are told that these people are among the Christians, they respond that this is impossible. They are told, however, that Christians get this idea from the fact that in the word God is called a spirit, and the only concept they have of spirit is a piece of cloud. They did not realize that every spirit and every angel is a person. However, when inquiry was made to find out whether their spiritual concept was the same as their earthly one, it turned out that it was not the same for people who inwardly recognized the Lord as the God of heaven and earth. I heard one Christian elder say that no one could have a concept of a being both divine and human, and I saw him taken to various non-Christians, more and more profound ones. Then he was taken to the heavens, and finally to a heaven of Christians. Through the whole process, people's inner perception of God was communicated to him, and he came to realize that their only concept of God was a concept of a person, which is the same as the concept of a being both divine and human. All right, that's enough. I hope everybody's having a great Sunday and continues to have a great Sunday. Remember, everybody, God's not in space, and there is no agency. Thank you to the Shadow Cabal of production executives, which make everything possible. Someone thinks I'm not a bad fella.